even though it's been out for well over a year now, I have to talk about Elden Ring. Specifically, how Elden Ring won me over. You see, I'd never played a From Software game before when I picked it up. I went in a total beginner. This meant I was as anxious as I was excited and intrigued. Plus, I've never been a fan of really high difficulties in open world RPGs. I prefer to play casually the first few times so that I can fully absorb the overall experience and story. For me, an open world RPG is a way to lose yourself from reality for a few hours. Repeating the same areas or bosses over and over again due to dying constantly just wound me up and interrupted the immersion a little bit. But I knew I would just have to get over it and deal with it in Elden Ring. I wasn't one of these people that just bought the game without doing any research, thinking, sweet, a new fantasy RPG, then getting blindsided by the difficulty. I knew that it was going to give me a hard time, and that I'd be dying a lot. But nestled in my apprehension over never playing anything like it was a genuine curiosity to see what all the fuss was about.
I am the Lord of all that is golden.
And yeah, it turns out Elden Ring is hard, especially for gamers like me. I'm a casual gamer with limited time to do it outside of my day job, and I'm not that good at the game either. My dodge timing is inconsistent, I don't know all the little secrets and side quests, and after 200 hours with the game or so, I still don't fully understand the lore. But these are all my faults, not the game's, and I've grown to accept that and learned to embrace challenge. I love Elden Ring, and one of the main reasons is that, in hindsight, Elden Ring does give you the tools that you need to make it, even as a casual gamer, and this video is going to be all about that. I'm going to talk about how I quickly get established every time I start a new campaign. There are a few key things that I always do every time, and hopefully this might help another beginner who may not have started the game yet. Before we get started, a couple of disclaimers. Firstly, this is just my personal view. I'm sure people who are far better at Elden Ring and have analysed it more will have contradictions, their own ideas, advice, and ways of doing things, and that's fine. I'm aware that I'll probably miss tons of stuff out as well, but there's always subsequent videos. Second disclaimer, I'm going to be ignoring the different ways that you can cheese the system to farm shitloads of runes quickly, which, let's be honest, we've probably all done, but call this an honest way to go about doing things.
Well, who do we have here? Tarnished, are you?
So the very first decision to make is obviously choosing your character. My first playthrough I went for someone without much magic skill, and my character build ended up being almost entirely absent of magic. Now I find it best to start with someone who has a good combination of both magic and conventional weapons. Personally, one of my favourite options is the Confessor. You start off with a sword and a shield, which is vital for parrying against early basic enemies like rats, wolves and soldiers. Plus you get reasonable base statistics, including magic, with 2 spells from the offset to get you started off. Once you've done the tutorial section, you're let loose in Limgrave, and as we all probably know, it's very much just pick a direction and see what there is. You're given a general objective to head to Stormvale Castle over the cliff, and that's a reasonable place to start. First of all, you'll head to the Church of Ele, if I'm pronouncing that right. Buy the crafting kit from Merchant Kale. Continue up north, and what you'll notice is that there are some conveniently placed guards all over the road, allowing you to practice some stealth killing or one-on-one combat and get a proper feel for the game. You'll then end up in this area by the Gatefront ruins, and again there are tons of enemies around here, but again they're all spread out carefully in such a way that if you're patient you can stealth kill pretty much all of them one by one, or lure them out into the open to practice fighting one-on-one without getting overwhelmed. But the primary objective here, apart from picking up the Limgrave map, is grabbing the flail from the back of this carriage. This will be a great weapon later on with a couple of upgrades against heavily armoured or stone-based enemies. The next thing I'm going to do is pick up the Flask of Wondrous Psychic. I'll head northeast to the Third Church of Marika to grab the flask along with the Crimson Crystal Tear for an extra health boost, basically a bonus health flask. There's a troll wandering this area, but he's easy enough to avoid if you want to. Now we need to do a bit of good old grave robbing and at the same time head south. As soon as you get access to Torrent, take a look at the map. If you look closely you'll notice there's all kinds of subtle clues about points of interest, etc. One of these is a series of small bunches of rectangles grouped together. These indicate where grave sites are, where there are a load of golden runes just sitting there waiting for you to swoop in and pick them up. Unlike the ones that are dropped by enemies, these stay in your inventory and don't disappear if you die. I generally use these to top up the runes that I gather from combat so that I can level up immediately and avoid losing too many runes. Yeah, I learnt the hard way not to carry around large amounts of runes with you, it's just not worth it. Anyway, I checkpoint these grave sites up and start heading south, bouncing between each of the grave sites to collect the free runes along the way. There's generally only a bunch of wolves to kill that are easy to spam from horseback. Don't forget to keep an eye out on the ground as well for glowing skulls. These are lying all over the place and offer up a quick and easy golden rune ×1 when smashed. We're going to make our way next through the Mistwood, grabbing a couple of extra tears for our flask, one of which is going to enhance our charged attacks. Don't attack any bears in this area, as tempting as it might be, because it will affect a useful side quest that you won't be able to start until you've atoned for your sins later at the Church of Vows. We need the NPC in the ruins in the Mistwood to be on our side, because he's going to help us out with one of the first bosses we're going to attempt. When you find the ruins, listen out to the strange howling coming from somewhere within. The noise is coming from a half-man, half-wolf man called Blyde. Once you've actually heard him howl, that will unlock an interaction with Merchant Kale, who we met at the beginning of our adventure. We're going to revisit that shortly, but for now, hop back onto Torrent and continue south all the way to the Bridge of Sacrifice, sprinting past everyone and everything, including the giant crouching to the right. Our destination is the Way Shrine, about halfway down the road past the crumbling wall. Collect the Weeping Peninsula map, then retreat to safety from the golem who will be rudely firing giant arrows at you. Open the new map up. Our next destination is the isolated merchant's shack on the beach to the west. It's a bit of a trek to get there, but it's going to be worth it. There's plenty of weaker enemies to kill along the way to get a few more runes. Once you reach the merchant, you can buy a lantern. This is a perfect way to light up the darkness of various places like caves and tunnels, such as Groveside Cave, which we're going to be heading to in a bit. The best thing about the lantern, though, is that it isn't wielded by hand, so you still have both hands free. On the beach, there are tons of zombies, bit stingy with rune drops, but perfect for practicing horseback combat, or different combinations of wielding weapons and enhanced attacks. Once we've got some more runes, and topped them up with the ones that we've been grave robbing, it's time to do our first level up. I sit down at the site of grace and I normally upgrade my health first, and maybe strength and a few other stats depending on my mood. Before leaving the area though, I'm going to give myself even more of a health boost. You can never have too many health boosts in this game. I head up the hill beyond the isolated merchant to the Tower of Return. There are a bunch of enemies in the area, one of which is pretty tough. You can run past them relatively easily though, but be quick because it's easy to get overwhelmed as well. Hustle up the ladder to the very top. Kill the guy manning the crossbow and open up the chest, and allow yourself to be ensnared in the transporter trap. Aside from getting a little teaser of the royal capital, we're going to pick up another decent item here. Run all the way up the steps and ignore the golem who wakes up. Run to the chest on the balcony to the right and open it up to receive the Blessed Dew talisman. Equip this once you've retreated back to safety. This is going to slowly restore 2 hit points per second. It won't really help too much in boss battles, but it will reduce your reliance on health flasks when you're out and about exploring. Run back down to the Guidance of Grace and sit down. Pass the time to night time and then fast travel back to the church where Merchant Kale is. Here we're going to meet Rennie the Witch and get access to the Spirit Calling Bell and the Lone Wolf Ashes. Then initiate a discussion with Merchant Kale. This is where we can have the conversation that we unlocked by hearing the howling in the Mistwood.
The howl of a wolf in the Mistwood. I suppose he must still be skulking about.
Merchant Kale will very helpfully teach us the finger snap gesture, and we're going to be using this very soon. But now it's finally time to destroy a boss. Remember the Groveside Cave? Well, lurking inside is the Beast Man, and he's a logical first boss to tackle, not least because now you've got the lantern you can actually find yourself around the cave to get to him, and that's going to help you dodge the wolves guarding him as well. You can fight the wolves easily enough using your shield to parry, but if all of them attack at once and you get flanked, you'll be dead in no time. Probably best to just ignore them and head straight into the boss area on the right. But the reason the Beastman is so good to start off with is that his moves are pretty predictable, he's quite slow, and by summoning the Lone Wolf Ashes as well, he's going to be suitably distracted in order for you to be able to land a few cheap hits. Once the Beastman is down, he drops a pretty helpful Fire Negation talisman which can help in later regions like Volcano Manor. Speaking of later, my next job is to go and get the weapon that will carry me through pretty much the rest of the game. Now time to head back to the Mistwood. If you didn't hear the howling of the half-wolf when we passed through earlier and then spoke to Merchant Kale, you can quickly do that now. Once we've got the finger snap gesture, we're going to use that to get the attention of the NPC. He'll jump down and engage in a conversation with you, and he'll tell you that
I'm looking for a man who goes by Darrowell. He fled somewhere nearby.
he's holed up in the Forlorn Ever jail. It's this someone that we want to steal a weapon from. This in my opinion is the perfect boss to practice against next. He's a slight step up from the Beastman, he's quicker and he can catch you out with lots of different moves, but if you do need a helping hand you can summon the half-wolf to step in for an assist. Whether you do that or you go it alone, either way he's a really decent challenge to give a bit more experience. But the real beauty about all the Everjail boss fights is that you can die as many times as you like without losing any runes. They stay outside the arena for you to just run back and collect. Fair enough, that's irrelevant if you're keeping on top of spending your runes so that you don't lose them, but believe me, one of the few bosses where there is no rune punishment for failure is to be savoured in this game. Once the boss is down, you'll get the Bloodhound Fang. When wielded with two hands, you get a devastating enhanced attack that is impossible for most bosses to dodge. You can also cancel it halfway through, using it as a way to back away from enemies quickly while also dealing a bit of damage. It's such an awesome weapon given how early you can actually get it. Of course, if you want to, you can go straight to this boss fight without meeting the NPC, the Half-Wolf, but the advantage of meeting him first is that he'll reward you with a somber smithing stone, and this will give you a head start on being able to upgrade the Bloodhound Fang and make it even more devastating. So to be honest, that is more or less it. I think we're pretty much ready to conquer the rest of the lands between and become Elden Lord. Well, not quite, but we're certainly ready to take on the rest of Limgrave, Stormhill, and find our way through Stormvale Castle. I'll generally head to Stormvale Shack so that I can exhaust dialogue with Roderica and get the jellyfish ashes, and of course that sets up a side quest in Stormvale Castle where you can look out for the Chrysalid's memento and bring that back to her. This is going to be vital when it comes to upgrading Spirit Ashes. Before Stormvale Castle though, I'll do a bit more exploring. I might try taking on an Erdtree avatar or even the troll in the Limgrave tunnels. If I'm feeling really confident, I might try and take on the dragon, but I mean, to be honest, that never really ends well. But after doing these main steps, I think we're in a pretty good place. We've leveled up a few times, we've improved our health, we've got a lantern to light up dark areas, a couple of side quests are already set up, and we've got a badass weapon. There's lots of other things that I've probably missed. There's so many items lying around that you come across at random, it's really hard to remember exactly where all of them are. But that's also what I love about the game. It's such a densely packed world with so many helpful items, and I plan on covering some of these in future strategy videos. Anyway, what is it that you guys do in Elden Ring when you start a new campaign? Are there any particular character builds, items, areas or specific quests that you swear by to get set up and quickly established? Share your thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.